Welcome back to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, the series that celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Ernest Hemingway, also known as Papa, was a man of many things. He was an author, free thinker, adventurer, sportsman, and bon vivant. But one thing he was not was a spectator. He constantly traversed the globe from one port of call to another, collecting tales, each more epic than the last. Aptly named after Papa and the vessel of his endeavors, Pilar, Pappas Pilar rum was crafted to harness this mindset, an homage to Hemingway's adventures and an inspiration for yours. Pappas Pilar rum sponsors today's episode, and we are excited to have their National Mixologist and Sales Manager for the state of Florida, Kyle Cooper, join us on the Outdoor Adventure Series today. Kyle, good morning. It's a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me. Pleasure being here.
Very good. Now, for our listeners, in the spirit of this full disclosure, we did say morning, and there will be no beverages consumed during today's call. At least I have to promise that, because I don't think 7 o'clock in the morning is an appropriate time for a nice rum-based drink. Perhaps it is. We'll find out from Kyle. But Kyle, again, welcome and good morning and happy holidays to you and your family. So tell us a little bit about, first, I'm curious, a little bit about your background. How did you get into the spirits business?
So, funny story. My college degree is in architectural drafting and design. So I have no history in the background as far as college degrees when it comes to hospitality or mixology or sales or anything along those lines. I actually ran a construction company in Philadelphia for about 4.5 years. And then when the economy kind of took a dip back in 08 and 09, I kind of had to reinvent myself. So I started bartending. Going to Chili's, believe it or not. That's where I got my start.
Okay.
Started bartending there and worked my way through different nightclubs, different high-end establishments until I one day was working behind the bar and saw this person come in and was asking the bar manager, "Hey, what do you want to order this week? You should try this new alcohol." And me at heart, I am a chef at heart. I am a culinary person. I'm renowned amongst my friends for hosting dinners and have them come over and try new different things. So when I saw this person come up to the bar, I kind of was like, "Well, what do you do for a job?" And they go, "Oh, I'm a liquor representative. So, I work for a distributor. I sell various different brands to all bars and restaurants." And I go, "Well, that's what I want to do. That sounds incredible."
Wow.
So once that happened, I kind of started to applying to different distributors and was given a shot with Breakthrough Beverage. And I ran their on-premise spirits division for South Tampa for about 4 years before the guys at Pappas Pilar kind of scooped me up and said, "Hey, we want you to come work for us." And since that was 2019, so since then I've been with the company going on a little over 4 years now. And it's just been incredible. It's been a lot of fun, taking my years of bartending experience and even the little bit of the architectural experience and on this doing designs and sales and kind of crafting various different things for people to enjoy when I'm out in the field teaching them about Pappas Pilar.
Okay. Very cool. And it's not lost on me, by the way. You mentioned that you were in Philadelphia, and now you had then made your way down to Central or South Florida. That's a pretty good move.
Let's chalk it up to an ex-girlfriend.
Okay. Okay. So if we were drinking an adult beverage, we would toast to her then. Well, so that's a great story. And how does the art of selling, which it is an art, I'm not a natural seller. I can get on and I can talk to people, much like you and I are doing today. But if you ask me to sell why podcasting or why buying this, brand of shoes or this brand of liquor or spirit, I don't, I suppose I could learn it, but it doesn't come natural to me. Did this profession of sales, did it begin to come natural for you, or is something you had learned? How did this come about?
I think it kind of goes back to one of my, biggest skills, I guess you could say, is connecting with people.
Hmm.
And when I was working with Breakthrough running on premise for South Tampa,
Hmm.
um, my biggest reason why I was successful is I built relationships.
Okay.
And when I'm building a relationship with a bar manager or a bartender, or a general manager, or even an owner of any kind, you want to find that connection with that person.
Hmm.
And then you want to use that connection to see how we could use what I'm using for Pappas Pilar is going to fit with their brand. And the biggest thing for me that was successful is if I knew something wasn't going to fit, I wouldn't push it
Okay.
because I'm not trying to make the consumer or buyer or bartender. I don't want to give them something that's gonna, sit on a shelf and they're not going to use it, or, they're not interested in it, or emotional, or, passionate about what it is that I'm trying to give them as a product or what I'm trying to have them use. And for me, that's the biggest thing is I want to use that relationship to grow not only our business, but their business as well. And that's how we get to be successful. And that's how me being a salesman is how I'm good at what I do, but also I get to have fun on the mixology side.
There you go. So let's talk about the mixology side for our listeners, and most definitely for me. Normally, I would Google things like this beforehand, and I have, again, in the spirit of full disclosure, I did not as I was prepping the show notes. But what does it mean to be a mixologist?
So to be 100% honest with you, I think it's a word that's thrown around a little too much.
Okay.
And if you want to get down to the base reasoning for, or what that word really means, is that someone who crafts or creates a recipe for a cocktail, that's a little extra special, right? There's someone who has truly honed their craft into using their skill set to make something that's a little bit better than what your average bartender like I would do back at Chili's could come up
Okay.
with, right?
Okay.
The difference between a bartender and a mixologist is mainly the difference between a chef at Waffle House versus a Michelin star chef, right? You've got two people essentially doing the same things. One has just truly honed their craft to make it just that extra level above. And that's what I try to do for us here at Pilar by using all the different expressions that we have. And we can get into this a little bit later about what each of our different brands that we have, as far as the different SKUs being blonde, dark, or sherry, or rye finished rum, can be used in a different way in that people aren't used to. So that's the fun part in really honing the nuances of what Ron Paul, our distiller, is really trying to do in the way he's crafted our rums.
Okay. And for our listeners too, Kyle's going to be coming back on for the third episode, and we're actually going to review some recipes using the four expressions of rum. But let's talk a little bit about these expressions right now, because the a bottle that I had the pleasure of consuming while I was interviewing Steve Groth, your CEO, was your dark rum, and
Okay.
what's left today on my sample that your PR professional Clay Abney sent me was, and I'm holding this for our listeners. I'm holding the blonde. There you go. It's blonde, so it's kind of hard to see it all. And then I have the Spanish, cherry casks finished. So I have
The
that.
sherry, yes.
Yeah. Now, the one that really interests me, by the way, is the rye, because rye brought back memories of growing up in the Detroit suburbs. And so when I was 13, I would go a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs, anniversaries. And at these events, the old guys that would drink whiskey, they always would drink rye. And for some and I always remember this old guy, he's at the bar, "Hey, kid, you want a drink?" And of course, I said, "Yes." And I had a rye and something, I don't remember what, but there was something about that rye that just brought back a lot of childhood memories for me. So I have to thank you for that, and
Of
Pappas for
course.
that. But
That's what we're looking for.
all right. So talk to us about, or share with us a little bit about these expressions. I mean, what was the initial expression that was crafted for the Papa's brand?
So when the brand originally got kind of conceptualized and brought to the market, right? Steve, I'm sure touched on this with Patrick Hemingway
Mhm.
and how we wanted to create a rum kind of in the spirit of his dad. And When we did that, the first expression that we came out with was the blonde. And you have the mini bottle. Obviously, I want to show you our full size bottle that we have here now.
All
And,
right.
and when we did that, Ron Call, who's our master blender distiller, his background is with Jim Beam and Cruzan. But he really truly wanted to create a rum that was in the spirit of what Ernest Hemingway would have drank back in the 40s, right? And if you look through the years at rums, right, what they were drinking back then is light years different than what we have on the shelves today,
Mhm.
right? So when we created, or I'm sorry, when Ron created this rum, um, it's a blonde rum on purpose. And the reason why we get that kind of straw blonde color is that Ron is blending 7 different rums together that have various age statements on them,
Okay.
right? So we're distilling down in Key West, and then we're also sourcing from all over the Caribbean as well. And way Ron has just taken all these different expressions and all of these different aged rums and blended them together to create what we have in our blonde is just something truly unique. It's the one that I love to bring up in tastings and when I'm out doing dinners or meeting new accounts or new people, and they just kind of look at it and they go, well, I'm not a rum drinker. I don't do rum. And I go, well, just trust me on this. Try it and tell me what you think. And I will say probably 97% of the time, everyone that tries it goes, oh my God, that's delicious. I've never had a clear rum like that before. And that's honestly what we're going for. We are trying to curb that mentality of, well, I drank too much Captain Morgan, or I drank too much Bacardi, or I drank too much whatever in college, whatever rum or Sailor Jerry, whatever rum you were poisoning it was that you drank in college, you drank way too much of, that you can't drink any more rum anymore because you feel like you're going to get sick. We're trying to get rid of that mentality, right? Because we want to have somebody to be able to enjoy our rums either neat on their own
Mhm.
or mixed in a cocktail. And all I can safely say that all of our expressions can be done both ways.
Okay. Way back, I think probably early 2000s, I remember going to St. Croix,
Okay.
and the opportunity came to go on a tour of a sugar or a rum distillery. And it was the first time that I was ever introduced to what perhaps the mixologist behind the bar in the facility shared with me was a sipping rum, which I had never knew because I always thought about the Captain Morgans and uh, the Bacardis because I remember they're fruity drinks. And so I had never known that there were sipping rums. Now, which I think is special because I tend to be more of a sipper when it comes to, I like to, let me rephrase it. I like to sip when it comes to like a rum or a whiskey or a tequila. I'm not a throw those things back as quickly as I can and go on the dance floor. That that latter part would be very dangerous. So I love the fact that you're changing what people think about rum as you are crafting these expressions and sharing these with potential customers like me. One thing that surprises me though is the clear rum. One, how you got it to be clear, because I was really curious about that. You called it a blonde rum, and when I think of blonde, I also think of a local coffee shop that has a blonde roast, which for me, I cannot drink it because and I'm a coffee fanatic. I love roasting my own coffee. So in the morning it's coffee, in the afternoon it's an adult beverage.
There you go. I'm
But
the same way.
and I'm actually curious, we could talk about this in our next episode. Does rum and coffee go together? But save that. Just stew on that for a little bit. But
All right.
the blonde coffee is very sour. So the less you roast, the higher the caffeine content, but also there's a lot more sour notes in the taste. And I can't, for my palate just does not like that kind of a sour. I like lemon, but
Mhm.
not when you're going through a roasting process. So
You're probably more bitter is what the probably is what you're looking at, right? More bitter taste to it.
well, it's hard to say. Like with coffee, there is a sour note to a lighter
Hmm.
roast, whereas a darker roast, you get more of the chocolates and the cherries. It kind of what I was tasting when I started off with the dark rum, which for our listeners, it's an empty bottle. That's what I was consuming. I was appropriately consuming it. And
we'll have to get you one of these big boys. That way you can be properly stocked.
I've it's something we can definitely chat about. But I digress. So I'm really curious, and I was really so again, I'm really surprised about this blonde rum was the one that you kicked off with, and when this idea that you approached Patrick Hemingway, that this is what his dad would have enjoyed, and so what's the how many different blends are coming together to produce again, which surprises me, is a clear liquor.
So when we're sourcing all these different rums, right? So we're distilling down to the keys,
Okay.
right? And so that distillate is unaged. So that's fresh rum right off our custom distilling pot we've got down there, which is a combination copper pot and combination column still.
Hmm.
So it gets us a lot of the funky notes that you would get out of a copper pot and a lot of the clean notes you get out of a column still as well. And so by using that as our base, you were able to use the remaining 6 rums that we're blending together into this mix. And when Moran's blending them, he's blending them to certain nuances, right? So when I
Okay.
first came to the company, as you can probably imagine, I'm a little bit of a liquor nerd. I like to know everything and see everything. It's educational for me when I'm out in the field and being knowledgeable, and also same for today,
Hmm.
being knowledgeable, talking with you about these things.
Mm.
And B, I just like to know these things. So I went and I
I
tried
I
all the
I
different
get that.
ones that we're blending together, and I got to see the reasons why.
Mm.
And a certain rum that we're picking from, let's say Barbados, right? It's going to have a lot more of those funky kind of notes to them, a lot more finish on the back end, whereas some of the other rums that we're sourcing may have more aromas on the front end and less viscosity or less lingering finish on the back. So Ron's taking each of the nuances of the rums that we're selecting or we're importing in and blending them to their peaks. So he's taking the best aromas that you're going to get off of that and getting the best finish that you're going to get off of this and the best viscosity levels we're going to get off of that to create the blonde rum that we have in front of you. And then once they're blended together, we do put them through a Solera system.
Mhm.
So the Solera system, for those people that kind of don't know what that is a way of blending spirits together and basically a stacked way. So it's going to start in an ex-bourbon barrel, and then it goes directly into an ex-Spanish Oloroso sherry cask.
Mhm.
And we like to say blended because it's not aged, right? They're not spending a lot of time in these barrels. They're only spending maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 at max
Mhm.
in each of these barrels before they're put into the next one, and then before they're actually bottled after that. And by doing this, the flavor profile that you're going to pick up on, as I'm sure you were trying with Steve, is outstanding. You get these awesome vanilla notes with hints of melon, a little bit of oak in there, some crisp almond. Some people even I'll taste a little bit of key lime sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Um, and it's those particular notes that we've got in this rum that really play well in a lot of different things. You can take it and put it in a mojito and it's fantastic, or the traditional Hemingway daiquiri as well. And it just adds a lot more depth to something that is a clear or silver rum that's unaged.
Okay. And so the to keep this particular finish spirit clear, this is just a natural part of how Ron and his fellow distillers, because I know you've got multiple distillers in house, but based on his whatever his recipe is, that is producing the clear version. There's not anything else going on to keep it clear.
So we are carbon treating it just a little bit, and it's just enough to get us to have that clear kind of straw color.
Okay.
If we didn't, it would be a little bit, and I mean, I'm talking 2 shades darker,
Okay.
not even a lot. And it's the reason why we're doing that is just to kind of give it a little bit more nuance, a little bit more clearness to it
Okay.
without stripping any flavor out, without stripping anything else out. We want to try and preserve all the flavors that we've got inside without getting rid of too much. Because when you are carbon treating, you are getting rid of a little bit of flavor, like your Cristalino tequilas.
Okay.
You see those are really extra añejos that have been stripped of their color.
Okay.
And when you are doing that, you are getting rid of a little bit of flavor as well.
Okay. All right. So I'm beginning to understand how you get to the clear, because it just again it was like I have no idea here, and I'm going to wait to talk to Kyle to find out. So what came after the clear? What came after, or
As
the blonde? What came after the blonde?
Oh, the dark.
The
Yep.
dark.
So when we entered the market, we had the blonde and the dark. Those were
Okay.
our two, we like to call them our flagships.
Okay.
So those were our flagship blonde and our flagship dark. The bottle, mini bottle you actually have in front of you, if you'll notice in the front has a 7,
Hmm.
whereas the newer bottles that we have now will have our flagship blonde on the front instead of a 7 on it.
Okay. Very
So, and
nice.
the reason for that is we just want to try and create a little bit more transparency on who we are. The
Hmm.
7th, as you'll notice on there, says 7th Solera profile. That
Hmm.
was the 7th blend that we picked.
Right.
And
Okay.
now the blonde is going to have that. So when we came out with the blonde, we had the dark as well. The dark, for the longest time for us, was just selling like no tomorrow.
Mhm.
It was nuts. Everybody loved the dark. I love the dark. It's, as you mentioned earlier about the rye, it is a whiskey drinker's rum through and through. It's a blend of 9 different rums. All of these rums have older age statements in them, right? So it's obviously got a lot more color to it. And then we're putting them through a separate Solera system. So it starts off in a bourbon cask and
Mhm.
then goes into a ruby port cask and then goes through a Spanish Oloroso sherry cask. Again, only spending maybe 1 to 3 weeks maximum in each barrel, but having 9 different rums blended together, as you can imagine, the flavor profile on that one is pretty outstanding.
Yeah. No, it's, I'm excited, and I'm actually thinking my roommate, at 5 o'clock, I know exactly I'm going to get a text from her. Howard, do you want a cocktail? And I'm going to walk down with the blonde, and I'm going to say, okay, let's do a Hemingway daiquiri, or that's the goal today. Connie,
There you
take
go.
care of this. So I'm curious, what's the proper, and I've got air quotes going on here, and what's the proper way to, or let's actually ask this question. Hemingway, how would he have enjoyed the coming back from the some deep sea fishing? He's got his big swordfish on the boat. He's just caught with his buddies, and
I
now
can tell
he's
you
going to.
exactly where he would be.
I and let's talk about that. Where would he be, and what would he be drinking?
He was renowned for going on his fishing expeditions in Cuba, and he would make his way to La Floridita. And if you go there, still to this day, there is a section of the bar cornered off with a life-size statue of him holding up a daiquiri, and
Uh-huh.
that was his drink of choice. Was actually the Papa Doble, believe it or not. So
Okay.
the Papa Doble is essentially a double daiquiri
Okay.
because Papa didn't want to just have one; he had to have 2 at all times.
I, all right. Now, in addition to the store, so we have a big box store up here that sells a lot of varieties of wines and spirits. But when you go out and you're promoting Pappas Pilar, how are you doing it? And what are the folks who are at these events, what are they walking away with in terms of their knowledge about Pappas Pilar and the rum expressions that you have in your brand portfolio?
So we are trying to, like I mentioned earlier, break out of that mold of that rum is for college. And if you want to drink a premium rum, you got to pay a premium price.
Mhm.
And what we've done is taken essentially crafted some of the best rums that we possibly can and get them to the consumers at a reasonable price. I mean, you should be able to find our blonde at stores for $29.99, the dark for $39.99. If you're looking at other rums in that category, that's way less than what you would pay for some of the higher end rums that people are really attached to.
Mhm.
And we want to be able to have everyone enjoy a good glass of rum without having to spend $100 or $80 on a bottle. And when I have someone that comes up and they see the bottle, it's obviously, for those of you who haven't seen the full size bottle I was holding up earlier, they do have a recognizable shape.
Mhm.
They are fashioned after World War II style canteens.
Right.
Just a homage, right, to Hemingway's days in World War I and World War II, even though he wasn't a part of the military. But they see the bottle and they go, "Oh, that's really cool." But as in this industry with a lot of other things, specifically some tequilas, they've got really cool looking bottles, but the liquid on the inside isn't that great, right? So what we're trying to do is portray, you can have a cool looking bottle, you can have an amazing story, but the liquid on the inside is what really makes up for it. And bringing someone's mentality around to enjoying something like this that they would never really think to buy or try for that matter, is really what we're trying to get after. This one thing comes to mind every single time. And I was up in Ocala actually at a place called the Tipsy Skipper, and we were doing a pop-up Christmas event with them where they have a bunch of different Pappas Pilar cocktails on the menu. And this woman came up to the bar and she was adamant. She was like, I am not chasing rum. I don't like rum. I'm not a rum person. And I go, ma'am, I tell you what, if you will try this right here, just try a little bit. And if you don't like it, I'll go and I'll buy you whatever cocktail you want behind the bar. Just please just try this and tell me what your thoughts are. Since then, she has become the biggest advocate for Pappas Pilar. Every time I go up there, she's at the bar. She loves it. She now enjoys rum. And she goes, if you hadn't made me try that, I would have never, ever gotten into drinking rum again. I would have stuck to vodka or gin, or I think she was drinking gin, believe it or not. But that for me is what I love doing. I love educating people and getting them to try new things that they wouldn't try. Specifically my 3.5-year-old son, trying to get him to try new things. So
Good luck.
yeah, we're getting there.
All right. So let's just imagine it's been many years since I've been to Key West, and I don't recall, but Hemingway House, I would imagine, doesn't have a place to consume liquor. Maybe it does, but you've got Sloppy Joe's, and you also have the Pappas Pilar Distillery. And I'm walking up to either one of those venues, and I would like, let's just say I'd like the blonde. Okay. I would always like the blonde, but you know, another spirit of full disclosure for our listeners. That's what happens when we do early morning podcasts. But how will the mixologist behind the bar, what will they be asking me once I say this is what I would like? What's their next way to communicate with me?
So if it was me behind the bar and you said, hey, I've heard about the blonde rum, I wanted to try it. The first kind of question I would ask is, what do you normally drink? What's your poison of choice or your cocktail of choice? And that kind of gives me a better base for what you like to enjoy. So if you came up and you said, I really like mules, I'm a Kentucky mule or an Irish mule or anything along those lines, I'll go, well, you can try doing our blonde and a mule.
Mhm.
And for you as the consumer, you're already correlating to the ginger beer and lime aspect of that, knowing that you like those flavors,
Mhm.
but now you're elevating that by adding rum instead of adding vodka.
Okay.
Same thing if you came in with the blonde and said, I really enjoy a mojito. Or for the person that comes in and says they want a daiquiri, the first thing I go, well, we make traditional daiquiris here. We don't make that sugary concoction that comes out of a slushy machine.
Okay.
So I like to get more engaged with the consumer on what their flavor profile is. And then I take that knowledge and I go from there and build them a cocktail that they're going to enjoy.
So if I like when it comes to coffee and tea and spirits, I'm very much traditional. I don't want anything mixed in with it. So I guess you would call that just neat
Yep.
in a glass. So, which I also want to talk about the perfect glass to consume a rum. But if I want just I want a rum neat, how would you again respond to that question in terms of figuring out what I'm looking for and how you can provide that solution?
Well, I mean, if you want to try something neat, I absolutely love people trying them neat. I do recommend when we are trying something neat, you take it into a bigger glass, which I'll show you here in a minute, but also tasting it a certain way. And there's a specific way to drink any spirit, not specifically rum. It could be anything for that matter,
Mm.
to really, uh, if you really want to experience everything that the distiller is trying to do in a glass, whether it's gin, whiskey, rum, anything along those lines, there's a very good way of doing that. And it's got a specific word and it's kind of a weird word, but it's called the Kentucky Chew.
The Kentucky Chew. Okay.
And basically what I recommend doing is you get your glass of rum in front of you, you nose it first with your mouth open, right? Because you not only smell with your nose, but you taste with your mouth at the exact same time.
Okay.
right? So I encourage you to do that. Once you do, just take a small, small sip. And I mean like just a little, like the size of your thumbnail,
Right.
and take that, kind of swirl it around your mouth, really get all of your cheeks, your tongue, the back of your tongue, underneath your tongue, everything really to encompass the spirit. And then either you can spit that out or you can swallow it either way, depends on your preference,
Right.
and let it sit there for a minute, right? Just let your mouth kind of enjoy the flavors that are going on and then go back a second. Next time, take a decent sized sip.
Okay.
Let it roll around your tongue, roll around your mouth a little bit more. So really now you're getting more and more and more buildup of those flavors, and you really get to experience what's going on inside the glass. Then if you want to take it another step further, you can add a little bit of water or an ice cube to it as well. Most people, when they are drinking neat, they prefer room temperature.
Mhm.
You can do it however you like. Some people like it a little bit colder. Down here in Florida, when it gets to be August or July, I can tell you right now, there's always a cooler in my car with ice to keep all the rum on ice because no one likes to drink hot rum or
Right.
hot whiskey or hot anything for that matter.
Okay.
But that's just a way that you can do it, that you can really enjoy everything that's going on inside the glass you've got in front of you. And that's just not only our blonde, you can do it with our dark, our rye finished rum, our sherry as well.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned the ice. So I have a friend of mine. He and his wife were neighbors back in Chicago, where I lived before Vegas, and he would keep these cubes in his freezer. And so, do you recommend frozen these cubes? And I have no idea what they're made out of, stainless steel or whatever. And
Other
I've
metal.
They're metal, yeah. Now
Yeah.
you have something like that on the your store, your shop on the website, but s do you recommend something like that, these metal cubes that have been frozen, or do you recommend actually having some ice cubes? Should they be a certain size, a certain shape, and how does that play into enjoying the spirit that you're drinking?
There is an excellent answer to that. And the question is D, all of the above. There
Okay,
is not a wrong way to drink. If
okay,
you enjoy drinking it with the stainless steel cubes that are frozen in your glass because it gets to the proper temp, that's amazing. That's if you enjoy drinking that way, then you enjoy drinking that way.
okay,
If you want to put an ice cube in it that made of ice, absolutely. I'm not going to tell you that there's a specific way that you should or should not be drinking, just that you are enjoying what's in the glass in front of you.
okay. Fair enough. So if I go down to the local P&J's, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a little saloon because everything in Vegas has gambling in it. And if I ask for I'd like a rum, and bartender will probably say, "You want it neat or over the rocks?" And I'm going to say, "Okay, over the rocks." Are they going to scoop up a whole bunch of ice, throw it in a glass, and then pour the rum in? How are you going to do it at your distillery?
If it was at our distillery and you said, I want to try the blonde neat, I would say over a rock, singular.
Okay.
So that way you're serving it either over a king cube, which is the bigger cubes, or a large sphere, either way. And the reasoning for that versus what you were suggesting, doing a scoop full of ice, is all down to science, right? Let's
Okay.
think about this from a scientific standpoint. If I were to put two glasses in front of you, one that's got a king cube and one that's got a glass full of ice, and you pour the exact same amount of rum inside of it, the glass with the king cube is going to melt way less than the glass with the ice in front of you, right? You're going to get a lot more dilution from having the glass packed full of ice versus the one with the king cube.
Okay.
And that for me, again, it goes back to your drinking style. For you,
Okay.
you mentioned earlier, you like to drink things neat. So I would recommend a king cube for you. However, someone who is not a neat person, someone that likes to drink things in cocktails, I would say get a glass full of rocks. So that way you have a lot of surface area and a little bit more, it's watered down a little bit more. I didn't mention this earlier, but our rums are overproofed a little bit. So our blonde is 84 and our dark rums are 86 proof.
Okay.
So for some people, that's a little much, but for other people like yourself and like me as well, it's perfect.
Okay. Very good. So let's talk about the glass. What does the perfect glass look like that I'm going to enjoy the spirit in?
So there are two styles of glassware that I typically like to use when it comes to either rum or whiskey. And Thankfully, I do happen to have one of these. They're branded for us right in front of me. This is
Oh,
essentially a brandy snifter.
yeah.
Okay. And then another one that I have, I use this for a lot of whiskeys. Um, and this is the Japanese style glass. But if you'll notice, both of them have kind of a very different but same shape at the same time. You've got a lot of bottom area
Hmm.
and then a lot of top area. And the reason for that is you want to get all the aromas from each of the different glasses. And the brandy snifter does allow you to swirl a little more, oxidize that a little
Right.
bit and break up a little bit more of the flavors and build some more aromas in that glass as you are nosing it. And
Right.
then same thing when you are tasting, because when you're tasting, all those aromas that are built up inside of the glass are going to come out as you stick your nose in and take a sip out.
Okay. Now I have to say, you've just surprised me, Kyle, because neither of those glasses were what I was expecting. I was expecting kind of, again, I can go back to the shop page on the website, and everybody, our listeners, we're going to have the link to the website shortly for you, and it'll be in the show notes, and you can visit the shop page. It's still, it's not the holidays aren't over yet, so go out there. I was expecting like a square glass or a round glass with vertical 4-inch height, 3.5-inch height, but I wasn't expecting what you just shared with me.
So if you want to go back to, let's think about wine glasses, right? You've
Right.
got your white wine and you've got your red wine glass.
Mhm.
And your white wine glasses are typically smaller in circumference,
Mhm.
whereas your red wine glass is a little bit larger.
Mhm.
Red wine glasses typically have a shorter stem versus a white wine glass that has a longer stem.
Mhm.
And if you want to think about the reasoning for that is whenever you are drinking white wine, you are supposed to be holding the stem because
Mhm.
you'll be warming the glass if you're holding it underneath the globe,
Right.
right? So you don't want to warm that white wine up. You want to keep it as cooler temperatures as you can.
Mhm.
Versus a red wine glass, you can hold by the globe. Most people hold by the stem as well,
Mhm.
depending on etiquette.
Mhm.
But when you have a rum glass, you can hold like this. You don't mind if you warm it up a little bit because more oftentimes than not, you are drinking this probably in the cooler temperatures. But with rum, you're drinking a little bit more in the cooler temperatures. And if you got a nice cube in there, it fits perfectly and you can just sip on this all day.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, I am gonna take you up on that one. All right. I like that. Which one of those is your preferred glass?
It depends on what I'm drinking, to be 100%
Oh,
honest with you.
okay. Okay.
If I'm drinking something, obviously Pilar, or if I'm drinking anything that I know is really good, I'm going to drink it out of here. If it's something that I haven't really tried yet, that I just want to really kind of feel everything that's going on, I'm going to go out of this. I'm not going to lie, this one was a little expensive, but at the same time, it definitely, you can really stick your nose in and really get a lot of the nose that's going on in there. And it does have that kind of divot on the side. So that way it doesn't spill on you as you're sticking your nose and mouth in a little bit.
I like that. I like the fact that it's shaped that you can stick your nose in it, so you're tasting and smelling at the same time. I love that. I will imagine, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that you are not the only mixologist at Pappas Pilar. You have folks that you're bringing up through the organization to help prepare them to, as you have more and more responsibilities, folks need to come up through the ranks and learn the business. How would they get trained? I mean, is it on the job with you, or do you send them to a class? How does this training and development happen within the organization?
Thankfully, a lot of the people that we have, and besides myself, all of them are down in Key West. So out in the actual field itself, um, we have our rum runners that are part-time people that work for us. They do events for us. And a lot of them are bartenders themselves. So that's their full-time job.
Mhm.
And then they work for us on the side. And so it's awesome working with all of them because not only obviously me being the mixologist for the brand, I am the one that's curating all of our cocktails that we're putting out on social media, putting out on our websites, but they are also the great test dummies for me that we can go out in the field and they can create a cocktail on their own or they've seen somewhere else and they're like, hey, this is a really cool idea and things along those lines where it's a great kind of just bounce back board that we have between each other and using different things. We've got a gentleman up in Maryland who does an amazing job. I've got another guy in Panama City who's incredible, and another girl down in Isla Morada. And all of them are very passionate about what they're doing, and so am I. So it's really cool to experiment around and say, hey, I was at the house one night. I saw this crazy thing using beet juice. Let's see if we could use it. And we all get together to start playing around with different things and come up with this crazy beet juice cocktail or something like that. But, it's educational wise, we have the platforms already, kind of what I'm doing with you today, to
Mhm.
educate them on the different nuances for each of the SKUs. From there, I'm basing everything back on their experiences behind the bar for them to use their experiences and their palate and their creativity to come up with awesome, cool things for us to do. And same thing with myself.
Very good. Very good. Bartending was always one of those jobs. I don't know if it would have been a career I never got to experience, but I always thought it would be fun. I worked at a steak and ale where I grew up in Detroit. And I remember the bartender's the one that had all the fun. And so, but I digress. How do you stay sharp? I mean, how do you stay at the top of your game when it comes to this industry and how it's continuing to evolve?
I mean, the biggest thing goes back to the sales aspect, being out in the field, being in front of bartenders, being in front of consumers. New Year's Eve, my wife and I, my parents are going to go to a rooftop bar here in downtown St. Pete that serves Pappas Pilar, and engaging with consumers there. And same thing with our rum runners, being out in the forefront of things. Not going to lie, social media also has a huge influence on all of that.
Yeah.
I follow a lot of different bartenders, a lot of different bars. That's how a lot of us get inspiration for things, as we see something and go, hey, that sounds really cool. Let me see if I could do that. Or just find a new flavor or find a new method of doing things. Like as of right now, clarified cocktails are making a huge comeback. They were out for a while, a couple of years ago, but now all of a sudden it's had a huge resurgence. And they're very, very tricky to do, but when they are done correctly, they're amazing.
Very good. Very good. So I'm curious, when you are out in the field and you actually shared a story a little bit ago about the woman who doesn't like rum. She was so adamant, and then now she's your biggest fan. What is the those aha moments that really, whether it's that example or perhaps there's others where like, wow, I really get to do this. This is fun, and this keeps me going day after day. I mean, it's nice to have the trinkets. It's nice to have the glasses and taste the beverage, but the proof is the consumer. And so, how do you know if like this has been worth it? This journey of mine has been worth it.
Honestly, it really is having that connection with the consumer, having that smile jump on their face after they've seen that they didn't know something about our products or know something about our brand. And all of a sudden now you just see that light kind of jump behind their eyes that gets them excited about something that they've never tried before. And I'm always that person that says, I'll try everything once, regardless of what it is, eating bugs in Thailand or anything along those lines. But having a guest come up and really enjoy the products that we have in front, and for them to really just walk away with something going, man, I would have never tried that. And I'm so glad that I was able to see that and interact with Kyle and interact with his team.
Very good, very good. Any final insight to go for our listeners? A quote, maybe it's an article, a book, something that really you'd like to share with our listeners before we head out today.
It's funny. Hemingway has so many different quotes and so many different things, but one of the ones for me that really always stands out is I drink to make other people interesting. And I, I take that quote very loosely, because I feel like if you drink to make other people interesting, I feel like when you're drinking together with everyone, everyone's interesting because now everyone's engaged, everyone's around a friendly thing to where you can converse between one another and have a great experience. So I think drinking to make everyone interesting really means that when you're drinking with other people, everyone's always interesting.
I appreciate that because when I first read the quote, I actually took it in a different way. And as I kept reading it, and as a coach myself in the leadership development space, it's all about our personal brands and the stories that we share, but also the stories other people share. And that's where I eventually got to with the quotes. I appreciate you sharing it this way because making other people interesting. It's not you, hoping that, oh my God, I got to get out of this. I'll just keep drinking until I'm done. But it's to help people become comfortable and have those great conversations and share those experiences. And I think that that's a wonderful way to interpret it. So thank you for that. Kyle, before we head out, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and the work at Pappas Pilar, where are the best places for them to go?
Obviously, our website, pappaspilar.com, is going to be a mountain of knowledge. On there, you will find not only our rums, you have some behind the scenes stuff on our rum making team as well with Ron and Justin and Sean down in the Keys, and then also cocktail recipes on there as well. Obviously, we do have our other social media platforms as far as Facebook, Instagram. I believe we have a TikTok and a Pinterest as well.
Okay, very good. Well, we will provide those backlinks to the social sites as well as, of course, the website. And regarding the recipes, I'm excited that you're going to be coming back on for one more episode where we're going to share some of your recipes and maybe some ones that are just been old standbys, some new ones that people or ones that people just they're enjoying over and over. And maybe you'll share one of those new forward-thinking recipes, and hopefully we'll create a movement around those. So appreciate that. Kyle, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely, Howard. It's been awesome talking with you today.
Very good. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and then you and I can have a final chat. Okay?
Sound good.
All right. All right. Outro. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Kyle Cooper, National Mixologist for Pappas Pilar Rum. A great conversation about really the kind of the origins of the expressions and the sales and marketing process and really the unique ways to enjoy this remarkable beverage. And like he had shared, when we think about rum, we think about the Captain Morgans and the Bacardis and fruit drinks and coming out of slushy machines. And this is a whole other level. These are really wonderful sipping rums, and we're hoping you get a chance to enjoy them yourself. Now, do go out to Pappas Pilar website at pappaspilar.com and check out their social sites. We've got Facebook, Instagram, I think TikTok, Kyle just mentioned today. There's definitely a YouTube channel, so we'll provide all of those backlinks as well. As for us, you can find us on the outdooradventureseries.com website, as well as our Outdoor Adventure Series pages on LinkedIn and Facebook, and of course, wherever you listen to your podcast. And as a reminder, do come back for episode 3 with our project with Pappas Pilar, and we're going to talk more about how do we mix these wonderful beverages into a recipe and how are they being consumed? And so that's going to be an exciting episode, and I'm really confident you're going to enjoy that as well. And like all of our episodes, if you really enjoyed it, you got to share it with your family and friends and give us likes and comments too. Okay, folks, go out there, have a phenomenal day. By the time this episode is published, it'll be 2024. And we wish you a happy, healthy, prosperous, safe new year. And thank you for supporting us in 2023. And we've got some more great episodes for you planned 2024. Pappas Pilar Rum, the sponsor of this Outdoor Adventure Series episode, is an ultra-premium rum brand inspired by one of the world's most incredible adventurers, Ernest Hemingway, and was crafted to harness the spirit of adventure. Enjoy your next adventure, and we look forward to having you on another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care.